Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Preview Podcast. Sunderland managed to take one step forward and two steps back. A 3-0 away win at AFC Wimbledon was paired with pretty much an unacceptable 2-1 defeat at home to Plymouth last night on Tuesday. That result means Sunderland haven't won at home since October the 3rd, so Shrewsbury Town must be licking their lips at the prospect of coming to the Stadium Light this Saturday. And to discuss Saturday's game, making his second appearance of the season, is Ollie from Shrewsbury Town's best podcast, the Salop. Ollie, how are you doing? Are you all right?
Yeah, it's good to speak to you again so soon.
It feels like we never really left. I think it was only a few weeks ago since we discussed what actually went on. But as it was, the game was cancelled as we kind of felt like it might have been, but we covered anyway. But could I have timed it any better than putting it out on the minute that our game actually got called off? I don't think I could have, could I?
No, you couldn't. You literally, I remember seeing notifications when you tagged me in it, and then at the same time in my same feed, people saying, "Look, the game's off," which was I'm sure I saw a few Sunderland fans smiling at you.
Yeah, they had a bit of a laugh at my expense, I think, that day. But fair play to them. I think I would have had a laugh myself as well, to be completely honest. So
it's one of those things.
It is. So typically, I put it out literally the minute that the preview process came out. The minute the game got called off, the same minute. It was called off at the time. Our 4 games, were called off due to COVID-19 outbreak at the Stadium Light. I think 14 players and some staff. Thankfully, Lyndon Gooch's side, they've all recovered. Unfortunately, the same happened at Shrewsbury, I think literally days later, and it was confirmed that, the manager, Steve Cotterill, had been in intensive care this week. Everyone at Sunderland wishes him well, as someone obviously who's been at the club as well. We believe that he is kind of recovering at the moment. He is in good space. But how much did the news put football for a Shrewsbury fan into perspective?
Yeah, it was crazy. So after our game was cancelled, the Shrewsbury-Sunderland game was cancelled. Then we played Doncaster. And then it's a bit murky there, but effectively into the new year in January, then the news started coming out that we'd had a COVID outbreak and a big one at that. So we believe we picked it up from another team. And interestingly, I'm told that we actually got audited at the start of Jan or maybe the end of December on our protocols, and we got 10 out of 10 for our marks. And yeah, it's very easy for a bit of a keyboard warrior to go, obviously Shrewsbury have done this and that, but yeah, it's COVID. It's an airborne virus. I'm sure Sunderland were abiding by the rules as well. It's just an absolute nightmare. So yeah, we found out that the squad got hit. We had a couple of cases before, but it was isolated cases. And then basically a lot of players. So probably certainly more than Sunderland got COVID. Fortunately, I think most of the players were okay. We haven't heard any impact or anything about long COVID or anything like that, which is great for the players. But unfortunately, Steve Cotterill came down worse, and he ended up going to intensive care. And then he went back to hospital again over the weekend. Pleased to hear that he was able to watch the game on Tuesday night against Southampton from his hospital bed. And it's quite upsetting. And I put a tweet out as well saying that we're going to start talking about football again now. But that doesn't mean we're not thinking about the manager at the same time, because it definitely puts it into perspective. And I think I'm quite pleased to hear the way the club have handled it. Always putting health of the players first and making sure we were ready to come back when we did.
Just before we sort of do go on to the football and stuff like that, we've heard these years recovering, but from a Shrewsbury perspective, has there been any news on, is he doing well? Is he expected to come out of hospital anytime soon, or is it going to be a few weeks that he might not be able to manage?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We haven't been told any timings. I'm told he sounds better. So both Aaron Wilbraham said that, and the CEO told me that he is sounding better. So when they tapped him for a little bit, but yeah, he's certainly not ready to come back yet. It's going to be a huge loss because he's such a big presence around the training ground for the players. And yeah, I'm sure that the staff will do well, but we're also missing our goalkeeping coach. We're also missing our fitness coach and a few others. So yeah, it really has hit us really hard.
So is Aaron Wilbraham taking the team at the moment?
Yeah, so Aaron Wilbraham is the assistant manager. Obviously, this is his first job as an assistant manager. He only retired. He played last season for Rochdale.
Yeah.
And then also we've got a Scottish guy called Dave Longwell, who was our academy manager. But since Steve Cotterill has come in, Dave has been a part of the first team squad. And we've been hearing really positive things about Dave's training and his attention to detail. So I think the good thing is that Steve Cotterill's come in, has got a really clear idea of how he wants to play. Aaron has played for the manager, so he really understands that philosophy. So I think, because he's got such a clear philosophy about how he wants to play, we're able to continue that.
Yeah.
And the players and the staff will continue to kind of carry on the same trend. And yeah, obviously we spoke obviously it must have been between like the 15th and 19th of December. So. And then we went on to beat Doncaster. We drew with Wigan, and then we beat Blackpool. So we've been on he got the manager of the month, coming into a team in relegation zone to get manager of the month is quite remarkable. So hopefully we can pick a few more points while he's absent.
Obviously, the news of Steve Cotterill was, I think, quite recent, certainly from a neutral perspective of what had been going on with them. But there was a few weeks beforehand, before the confirmation of the fact it was quite bad, the bout of the virus that he'd had. You were putting together a great run, as you've just attested to. Saturday's game at the Stadium of Light, though, was your first league game, I think, since the 29th of December. How have you found, as a fan, not having games? Obviously, we've had it, and I'll be honest, I quite liked it. I liked having the break and the not ruining of Christmas, but not everyone's a Sunderland fan. So did you feel the same, or did you want the game to come thick and fast?
I think for the first 2 weekends or so, it was quite nice just to have a bit of quality time as such. But then at the same time, we're not really going anywhere at the weekend. There's nowhere to go. So yeah, at first, the first weekend was nice. Obviously, we do a podcast every week, sometimes twice a week if the manager gets sacked or something really big happens. So we're doing a podcast today because it's been such a long time. But yeah, we haven't played for 21 days and we haven't done a podcast for 21 days as well. So yeah, it's been quite a big gap. So yeah, really looking forward to the football being back, which is great. And as you say, yeah, we played last night against Southampton in the FA Cup, which in some ways, actually, quite a few fans have said this. In some ways, is quite a good game to come back to because playing Southampton, who are a team doing really well in the Premier League, is probably in some ways a good test to come back and get the cobwebs away without its impact in the league form. Because while we have moved up the league table, I wouldn't say we're out of the relegation fight yet.
Yeah, I was looking at the league table last night, and there's a few games in hand and stuff there, but yeah, absolutely not. When it comes to the game yesterday, you touched on it's probably a good game to return to because probably less pressure because you are playing a team that's doing really, really well in the Premier League away from home. Your result in that game dependent on whether Saturday went ahead. Obviously, you did lose 2-0, so that meant that the game does go ahead on Saturday. But I looked through the Southampton team to see if, they'd rested anyone, and there was, one or two players that you don't normally hear of, but I think Benderek, Fraser Foster, Ward-Prowse, Shane Long, Jack Stevens, they're all part of the squad, and it was only a 2-0 defeat, which is, a defeat's a defeat, but when you play a Premier League team, we know how wrong that can sometimes go when you're side in our division. So how was the performance considering?
Yeah, just on the Southampton team, they've got a kid called Hawkins who played left back, who's a player to keep your eye on. He's a really, really good player. And the player called Watt as well, who is playing on the Southampton play a very narrow 4-4-2, more of a 4-2-2-2. And Watts was a really good player. So there's some good youngsters coming through. But yeah, you're right. There's a kind of core to the team there. And yeah, I kind of through obviously the game being cancelled, and then obviously the discussion about whether the game was going to go ahead or not. I kind of had a bit of a football friend with a Southampton podcast, and he was very complimentary about how Shrewsbury played. So was the reporters on BBC and also Sky Sports, BT Sport as well. So yeah, we put a very resolute performance, and one of the things that I think it was worth noting that one of the biggest things that Steve Cotterill implemented is our organisational shape. We are so well organised. We are really, really hard to break down. And that's probably the biggest thing, that we're basically playing counter-attacking Leicester-style football. And that's what's getting us the wins. And that showed again, even though we looked a bit rusty, but also I think it's worth noting that obviously the Southampton players are going to be a bit faster than the average League One player. But yeah, we definitely came through the test. And yeah, I thought we put in a good performance. Passing-wise wasn't great. We weren't very good in transition. We were a bit loose keeping the ball. But defensively, we were really solid, which gives us some confidence going forward.
And you touched on the Southampton team there as well, and probably doing the young lads a disservice. I think Southampton have probably one of the best academies producing players on a consistent basis in the country. I mean, Ward-Prowse being one of them, who's gone on to play for England. Voskins, I think you touched on before as well, and there was also the boy up front. I think it's Durton Dulu who scored.
Yeah, he's quite a handful.
So there's a bunch of players there that could probably quite easily handle themselves in League One and possibly above if they came on loan. So definitely a defeat, but a good defeat in the circumstances.
Yeah, good defeat, bit of coin in the bank. I think it's worth just saying, I think it was great that Southampton supported us to get the decision to play the game. Obviously Sunderland's a bit different because, if the Premier League would have screwed over Sunderland, there'd been quite a lot of noise. But clubs like Shrewsbury, like Bury have in the past, Bury got kicked out of the FA Cup a couple of times, and we sort of Leyton Orient and other smaller teams, because we're not very noisy and people don't care so much. We were quite convinced that we were going to get kicked out. So fair play to them, and Leeds as well, to be fair. But I think Leeds did it probably because they were happy to have a bit of a break and get some players back. So it works well. So we've got a few pound in the bank, and a stretch of the legs, and hopefully also a bit of a day out for the players as well. Go to a new ground and play at Premier League ground as well.
The only thing that knocks Sunderland out was Mansfield in round 1, unfortunately. So that's the only thing we get kicked out by. It's difficult to discuss current form because of how long it's been since you've played, but we'll go back to the games that you did play. I think prior to the COVID-19 break, you were unbeaten in, I think, 8 games, sitting currently in 17th with a few games in hand on the teams around you. Steve Cotterill took over when you were 23rd. We touched on it a little bit in the last podcast about how he changed things, and you've already touched on it a little bit. But how has he actually gone about changing the fortunes of the side so fast and so quick? Because that form's continued on since we last spoke.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We were top of the form table at one point, where we'd in the last 6 games and last 5 games, we'd won 4 and drawn 1. And against the top 3 teams as well, which is quite impressive. So, I'm sure, definitely we ruined a few accumulators. And I'm sure, the fans of Sunderland, Portsmouth and Peterborough were probably quite pleased that they saw that we were taking points off the top few teams, Hull, Lincoln and Doncaster. What did he do? So I think, first of all, he's that kind of cliche, kind of just gave the players a bit of confidence, I think, in terms of training. So I think his man management, he's definitely a championship level manager, which for me will have an impact. And I think that's what you're probably hoping with your appointment as well. You've got a championship level manager, or hopefully raise the play of your current squad and your first team. So he's definitely done, I think, a bit of man management, a bit of magic dust, I think, in terms of his presence. Solidity and having a real clear shape. So under Sam Ricketts, sometimes we were 3-4-3, sometimes we were 3-5-2, sometimes we were 5. And then we also started the season playing 4 at the back. So I think he's also been quite clear in terms of having quite a clear shape. And then I think it comes down to kind of 2 things. One is organisation and preparation on the training ground. But I think the big difference that we see with Steve Cotterill is his preparation and his attention to detail in the game live. So he makes changes live, which I think is really good. And also the preparation that he does. So when we played, I think I mentioned this actually when we were talking before, when we played Hull, we absolutely nullified them. And we did the same against Lincoln as well. And it's interesting that the Southampton manager picked on it as well, something that he calls automation. So basically almost like the robotic nature of the team reacting to certain situations that were really, really well drilled. So he's really drilled the team, got back to some basics, and then got the defenders just doing some real basic things. So, for example, against I think it was against Wigan, we scored from a rebound from a penalty, which we didn't score the penalty and we scored the rebound. Now, during the season, we conceded penalties and no one ran in, and we were also really bad at clearing the box. And he'd gone back to basics. So, for example, when we had that penalty, we didn't score. Players run in and Ado scored. And it's just that's a little example of little details he gets into, making sure the defenders are standing position correct. So he's done loads and loads of little things, which has had a big impact overall.
You probably have more experience than me of that, but I'm starting to pick up, being in 2.5 seasons deep in League One, what it kind of probably takes to get out of this league. At risk of making it sound like Cotterill hasn't done that much, but at the same time, looking at the league as a whole, do you think that to perform well in this league, it's just keeping the basics well, defending well, being organised, doing your job, and having someone that can score goals up front? Do you think ultimately that is something that would get you out of this league? And do you think that's maybe why Sunderland have struggled? Because we've had three different managers, three kind of different styles.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when we finished third, we had a physio called Chris Skip, who's actually just gone to Burnley. And he was chatting on private message to my mate, Glenn, who does the podcast with me. And Chris Skip described this league as a running league. Run, 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 run. You just have to run. Obviously, I don't know if you saw the interview with Madison last night where he talked about running as well. So I think it's important at all levels, but League One particularly. I think you've got a team, a bunch of players that is really well organised and is fit, really fit, and can run all day. I think they're the key ingredients to get promoted out of this league. And then you add on top of that a bit of quality. When we finished third, Wigan and Blackburn were good, solid football side, but also really athletic as well. And as you know, there's not a lot of difference in quality throughout this division. Even teams like Pompey and Ipswich and yourselves, don't look particularly special. Maybe Hull's probably the only one that probably looks a little bit better than everyone else, and Lincoln as well, maybe. But still, it's not huge gains, is it? They're not. You don't expect someone to run away with this league by 20 points or something, which could happen if we had a really good side. So yeah, for me, I think it's about that organisation and that running, and I wouldn't even say you necessarily need a massive out and out goal scorer. Peterborough had one, didn't they, with Ivan Toney, and they didn't go up. I think it's just about sometimes grinding out those results. 1-0 rather than your 1-alls that you've been quite famous for, just winning by the odd goal. But yeah, I think that's a bit of that organisation and that running ability is key.
Talking about goal scorers, we touched on it a little bit in the last podcast, but I always like to get an update on him because I'll openly admit I really love him. Jason Cummins, I noticed that he hasn't really changed since we last spoke, which to be fair is only a few weeks, Jason, but does he look like he could potentially replace, I think because you got Udo and Whaley up front at the moment, can he sneak in or is he even further out the picture now?
Yeah, you might notice I'm smiling. It's because I had a bit of comments from his dad last night on Twitter.
Oh, juicy, exclusive. Come on, fire on. Tell me more.
So basically, there's a bit of a running joke with Shrewsbury Town fans, and someone did a perfect tweet a few weeks ago. Said that when Jason Cummings leaves, we're going to thank him for trying to get fit for 18 months. And I made a joke last night that, he came on the 83rd minute. So I said, it's good to see Jason's now fit to play 7 minutes, which his dad didn't quite like. Jason Cummings did fantastic at Hibs. Yep. Scored a few goals for Rangers, scored a few goals in Europe for Rangers. Yep. Scored 4 in 3. Forest, Luton, Shrewsbury, there's a trend there. One, he's going lower down the pecking order, and two, he's just not playing. So he played out of position, albeit at the start of the season. He had one game where he didn't make one forward pass, and he just doesn't look on it. I don't know whether it's a mental thing, whether he's just not fit enough. I don't know. But I think it says it all that when we've got a winger playing up front and a striker who doesn't score many goals and has played when we signed from Telford, which is 3 or 4 levels below us, are ahead of him. And then Pike, who we signed from, I can't remember, Barnsley or someone like that in the summer, has been injured all season, came on before him. Now, he's a target man, but still. For me, Jason Cummings, obviously I'd love him to score goals because who wouldn't want a striker scoring goals? But the kind of sentiment in the fan base is just get rid of him because he just doesn't do anything. He's played in the EFL Trophy and he looked lost. He came off the bench in the FA Cup against Oxford City and looked desperate to score, so much so that he kind of fluffed his lines and he could have set someone up for a goal. And it's just quite sad, really. He just hasn't done very well at all. And obviously, I don't know the reasons behind that, but I think it's always interesting when you have a player who people perceive or think they have potential and should play at a higher level, or has goals in them. But Sam Ricketts didn't play him, and now Steve Cotterill isn't playing him, and we're now playing with 2 strikers as well. So I think that's not a very good reflection on where he is at the moment. Obviously, I never ever write a player off. There's absolutely no reason why he still isn't a talent. and maybe in the right side, in the right environment, maybe he kind of perform. But in terms of environments, I'm not sure you're going to get too much better than Shrewsbury. It's a town of 80,000 people. Most people will leave you alone in Shrewsbury. And it's a great place to kind of kickstart your career, or if you're a young kid, kind of just focus on your football. So there's no real excuses really. I haven't heard of any injuries. It's a bit of an odd one, to be honest. I'd love to have a chat with the manager to find out exactly what's going on, but the fans are a bit confused. So as we always do, you kind of make assumptions, don't you?
Of course, yeah, that's all we can do as fans, and sometimes we're wrong, sometimes we're right, but 9 times out of 10, the proof is in the pudding on the pitch, isn't it? On to more sort of positive things, because there's plenty of positives around Shrewsbury at the moment, unfortunately for us playing you on Saturday. Under Cotterill, it kind of feels, and we discussed this a little bit last time, but like you're starting to show the potential that Shrewsbury have got. Now, what I mean by that is it feels like Shrewsbury are, on paper, one of the better sides in the league in terms of the names that you've got there, in terms of sort of recent history. But since that playoff defeat, since obviously Paul Hurst lost, left, it feels a little bit like you've sort of bobbed around the bottom half to the middle. And under Cotterill, it seems like you started showing that potential that I think as fans you probably always knew that you had. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, we're a funny squad. So in terms of our defence and goalkeeper, we've got really good quality players for this level. And I think in midfield, as you touched on, we've got Vela, who got promoted with Bolton in League One, and Ollie Norburn, who's a player that opposition managers always seem to call out as a quality player. Our own fans don't always seem to rate him, which is maybe a bit harsh, but he's been playing really well at the moment. And we did have 2 pretty solid wing backs as well, but we've lost Charlie Daniels. His contract has ended now. We had him on a short-term contract. And also we had a guy called Matt Miller, who I was quite critical of because his passing and crossing and his output was quite poor, but he was really solid. He was really athletic. So for his defensive side, he did a good job kind of, positionally. But in terms of offence, he kind of lost that quality. But Charlie Daniels, I think, is a big loss. So we've got a really weird squad in the sense that, some areas of the squad were really strong. But right now, today, we're really weak in wing-back positions. And to be honest, I'm not really that overawed with our strikers either. So I think defensively was fine. And I think, I have some confidence going into a game that we're going to, maybe concede 1 or better still have a clean sheet. And I'm not as worried as we used to be in the last 10 minutes of the game that we can hold out. Our problem now is going to be scoring goals in terms of having those creative players. But hopefully we have signed Chapman on loan from Blackburn Rovers, who's a number 10. So hopefully he can be something for us to kind of hang a hat on.
You talked about Charlie Daniels. That will be a player that people listening will know. It is one of those names that is on the team sheet, but I've seen that he did go. His contract has come to an end. But I think the last time I checked, Portsmouth were in the race to get him in. With all due respect to Shrewsbury, Portsmouth are probably more likely to get out of this division than Shrewsbury are this season. So is there a particular reason that Shrewsbury didn't hang on to him, or was it more his own personal choice that he wanted to leave?
I think it comes down to simply, as you guys know this, given your location, I think it just comes down to logistics.
Yeah.
So I imagine he lives in Bournemouth or in the area, and then Pompey, obviously just down the road, apparently are going to offer him a contract. So Pompey are obviously a side that are doing better than us this season, and it's closer to home, and he's not going to spend hours and hours on the M5, and then God knows how he drives across the M5 to Shrewsbury. It must be a bit of a mission on some A roads. So it's not too surprising. I think I'm not going to moan about it too much. We have got him fit, which is a bit of a disappointment from our side. But at the same time, he did score a few goals, create a few assists, and put in a good shift while he was here. So he'll have while it was only a short stint. Most fans, I'm sure, will be quite positive about his time at the club.
When we're talking about fullbacks, I think you probably knew I was going to come onto this, and I completely forgot to ask on the last one. Fullbacks, there's a particular lovely fullback, shall we say, that Shrewsbury had, Donald Love, which many people will remember. I feel bad saying this about any person, but he was a bit of a joke at Sunderland. He became a bit of a cult hero because he was so reminiscent of the downfall of Sunderland Football Club, and what happened once he got signed was we basically fell through a trapdoor. But he went to Shrewsbury, and actually, I think last time we spoke last season, I think yourselves and Glenn were saying he was doing quite well. He looked quite tidy, and then Sam Ricketts completely dropped him. So I thought I'll see how he's getting on this season because I haven't seen him for a while. And I've noticed he's played one game this season. So what's happened with Don Love?
Yeah, so to quote Sam Ricketts, he fell out of favour. So he played at the start of the season, and then we signed loads of right backs. So we signed Marlon Fossey from Fulham, Matt Miller from New York Jets in Australia. And we also have Ryan Sears, who's a youth product, who can play right back or centre back. And literally just fell down the pecking order. He played in the FA Cup for us, I think, and then maybe a trophy game. But yeah, I think he played maybe one game in the league early on. Paul Donald Love. I think there's just players who are a bit better than him getting in the squad. The fact that he didn't play last night and we played Roshan Williams, who's a centre back at right wing back instead of him, I think tells you everything. I think the club would probably appreciate someone coming in to take him off us. And maybe he needs to go down to League Two to rebuild his career. Because he was okay. He started the season okay last year, was pretty solid as a right back, but as a right wing back, but he didn't offer enough going forward. And I think he's almost a bit of a victim of us playing wing backs now. He's a solid player and he's works hard, but for a wing back, he needs a bit more productivity going forward. And he doesn't. I don't think I've heard the manager say anything about him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he moved on in the summer, because I think getting rid of players in January is going to be quite a challenge. So yeah, Paul Donald Love, he's nowhere near the first team.
So it's fair to say that the love affair is over then with Don Love and Shrewsbury.
Yeah, it's a shame really, because you always want players to succeed, don't you? You never want them to fail. And he seems like a good lad, but yeah, it hasn't really worked out for him as well as he hoped.
Talking of sort of players that I have always been impressed with at Shrewsbury, the one that really sticks out for me is probably Aaron Pierre. We didn't discuss him on the last podcast, but I think naturally, I think he started off really, really well at Shrewsbury, and I think he's probably just kept at that consistent level. And sometimes when a player is consistent, you almost forget that they're the one to look out for, shall we say, because of how consistent they've been. But it seems that Simon Whaley's having a bit of a resurgence as well this season. But it's been a few weeks since he last played a league game, so it's difficult to say who's currently on form. But which players would you say Sunderland should be looking out for on Saturday?
Yeah, Aaron Pierre, with all of our players, and especially the back three, really saw a huge drop in form. But it's good to see that Aaron Pierre is back in form, and he was an absolute man mountain last night. Cleared the ball off the line a couple of times, some really good headers, some really good tackles. He looks fitter and he looks in better shape. Josh Vela was superb last year. He was Melbourne and Vela play as two kind of number sixes in front of the back three, and they both work really, really well together. If one of them pushes on, one of them will always sit. Vela, I'd say the triangle of Pierre, Vela, Norburn are the players to look out for. And then at the top of the pitch, Sean Worley, who's played most of his career as a right winger, is our top goal scorer. And often we've lamented his finishing ability, but to be fair to him, he's taken some really nice chances this year. I mean, he's probably our biggest threat going forward at the moment. Leon Clark came back from injury, didn't play last night. I'm not sure where he is. We're not clear 100% on who's where with COVID at the moment. We're told one player is still isolated, but he was on the bench last night, so surely that can't have been him, actually. So yeah, I was wrong there. But yeah, he's obviously a player that your fans will know about.
Yeah, I will always refer to Sean Worley as Simon Worley because I have this thing in my head where they're the same person. They're obviously very different. I just always remember Simon scoring for Preston to win us the league, basically, when we beat Luton 5-0. And that makes me feel a bit sad because that was in the division above. I touched on it at the beginning of the podcast in terms of Sunderland. We haven't won at home in over 3 months. While 2 years ago, I mean, even last year, probably, plenty of clubs would come to the Stadium Light, be happy with a draw, maybe sit behind the ball. And it had an element of a fear factor. We only lost once last season against Burton, once the season beforehand, which was against Coventry. Has the fear factor with Sunderland worn off on opposition fans because we've been that bad for that long and in this division for longer than most people expected? Like, do you come to the stadium like on Saturday, rather than thinking I'd be happy with a draw, saying, well, no, I would like a win, actually. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why we should be fearful of Sunderland at all. I think that's probably true of every team in this division, as I said earlier. Yeah, there's some teams with big names, and I put inverted commas next to that. And you get a lot of arrogant fans, particularly like Pompey fans, seem to be particularly interesting online. Fair to say, and I'm not just saying this, I've said this to you loads of times, Sunderland fans seem have a little bit of humility. I remember saying to a Pompey fan a few days ago, humility is free. And yeah, it's I don't think we'd be scared of anyone in this division at the moment. No one is on a great run of form, apart from maybe Hull pick up a few points now. So yeah, I think it's obviously there's two sides to Sunderland. I think if you had all your fans there, that would probably change it a little bit. But an empty stadium is an empty stadium now. Whether it's a big stadium like your guys or a smaller stadium like ours, it's it's a bit of a leveler. I think not having fans there. And I think as soon as I'm sure the staff and the analysts will point out your home record is quite poor, I'm sure that will give us some confidence going into the game. How many games have you played since you've been back? Have you played a lot, or are you still trying to find your feet again?
Northampton away, Wimbledon away. I think 4. I think we've played 4.
Okay, so you're fully back now.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
For me, it'll be a big test for us. How we can come back after playing on Tuesday, after having 21 days off, having our own little winter break. So it'd be interesting to see how we perform. So I'd say ordinarily I'd be have a bit of confidence, especially with our current form. But I think the fact that we've been off for such a long time and played on Tuesday probably makes you favourites, to be honest. Maybe this might be a good time for you to play us and kind of take that monkey off your back.
Yeah, potentially. You would hope that the club would and the team would look at it that way. There's no right or wrong answer to this, I guess, with Sunderland fans, but it felt like a couple of years ago, like when we first came into the division, like you say, we're in League One for a reason, and we were in League One then for a reason. And I was looking to the side that we had when we first came down, and it kind of makes for grim reading, because I would have said at the time it's probably the worst Sunderland side we've ever had, but it's a damn sight better than what we've got. And you've got a younger Aidan McGeady, a younger Chris Maguire. And it felt like in the first season, the reason we picked up so many results or didn't lose as many is because teams would come and try and get the draw, which is where a lot of the 1-1s began, I think. But there's a lot of teams we just put away. You were one of the teams that came that season and got a 1-1 draw. I think Josh Madger scored one of his last goals for us. It was around Christmas time, just after, I think. And I remember it could have been yourself, it could have been Glenn, I could be wrong. We're quite happy with it, with the point, and I think a lot of clubs were like that. I do think potentially because, and I don't think I'm pushing this too far, I think we're probably the biggest in terms of stature club in the league. Certainly not in terms of the team and the way we've been playing over the past few years, but in terms of stature. And I felt like when we came down, coming to the stadium, I almost felt like for some teams, probably not Shrewsbury, but some teams, it was like a bit of a cup final because of the size of the stadium. Because we've been here for that long, as you said before, you're looking for a win. You're not coming for the draw. Have you felt gradually the stature of Sunderland change since we've been in this division? Like, are we a League One team, basically? Is that, I suppose, what I'm getting at?
Yeah, it's really funny. I was listening to an Ipswich podcast at the start of the year, and one of them said, "We're not a League One team." Well, hopefully they've realised by now that they are. And I think what you said there is fair, is because you come down, and you normally come down, don't you, with a couple more Championship players?
Yeah,
you have a squad
Honeyman was
better.
there, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Sunderland, for me, by far the biggest club in the league. We're miles bigger than Pompey, and if you're an investor, you're much more interested in buying Sunderland for me than you would be buying Pompey or you would be buying Ipswich, because of the size of the club, the fan base, the infrastructure, and all that stuff. Yeah, I think it just comes. I think there's almost two parts. It's for me. People talk about big clubs. For me, you have big clubs, and big clubs for me need two things. Yeah, you do need a history and a legacy, but you also need a first 11 that is a big club team. And yeah, you've got all the history and the infrastructure for being a big club, but your first team is very average League One, and it does over time. Players talk, analysts watch the games. And I think if you watched Sunderland play over the last few years and you kind of forgot and you didn't know who Sunderland were, if you were I don't know, German or not even German, but an alien come in and watch the teams, you wouldn't think some of them are any special. So yeah, so I think probably your aura of coming down, being a big Premier League club, has disappeared. And looking at on the other extreme, Pompey went down to League Two, were there for like 6 years, and I don't think anyone really fears playing Pompey because of that. So yeah, I think, as you guys know, that the longer you stay here, the harder it's going to be to get out.
It almost feels like that fear factor that we might have had when we first came down is now flipped. We're now feared of playing sides like Plymouth, and
I think there must be a mental aspect to it, mustn't there? That the first time you go there, let's be honest, a lot of Shrewsbury fans will go, let's go to Sunderland, let's go for a day out. It's a big city. You can take the train, you go to a new stadium. It's a big, really nice new stadium. I mean, not new, but new for Shrewsbury in terms of ticking it off the list. I mean, you do that once, and it must happen for players as well. You go there once, and then you go there again. It's like, okay, we're playing Sunderland again this week. So I think that aura's gone. But to be honest, though, that could be in your favour. Not necessarily this year, because I'm not sure you'll go up this year. But next year, that could be in your favour, because teams will be thinking, well, seeing you is a little bit more of a League One side, and particularly the players. It'd be interesting to understand what the players would think on this, because players talk a lot, don't they? Yeah. A lot of players talk amongst themselves, I heard from a opposition player against Ipswich that they were playing us, and after 30 minutes they realised that we were really crap, and maybe that's happened to you. After 10 minutes, 20 minutes into the game, the players amongst themselves and at half time going, come on lads, we can beat these. And I don't know whether you see a difference at half time with opposition. Do they come out a bit more attacking, or do you see much difference?
It's a weird one at home. We've just, I think I kind of looked at it last night and looked at how many points we've had at home, and I think this has taken out the fact we got beat off Mansfield in the FA Cup, but MK Dons, Plymouth, Burton, Wigan, AFC Wimbledon, Bristol Rovers, we've got 3 points from those games. And I think Bristol Rovers, Wimbledon, Wigan, Burton, Plymouth, and MK Dons all got goals in the first half. So I think they probably clicked faster than after 20 minutes that we're pretty crap out there. Maybe I'm being harsh because we are mid-table, but I think they've kind of clicked that we're not the Sunderland that maybe the name. That's the thing, because I know we're an average League One team, and it makes me sound like I'm not used to it. I kind of am, and I think I maybe structured the question originally slightly incorrectly. I think as in stature, we're beginning to look League One, as I think maybe what I meant, and it feels like we are just one of many with a bigger stadium.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing as well. I think almost there's a lot of teams in League One. And again, I don't put your fan base in the same position as this, but you've got arrogant Pompey fans, arrogant Ipswich fans, and then you've got obviously Charlton a bit different, and then obviously Hull's a bit different as well. But you've got quite a few big teams. So I think maybe if you were the only one, maybe a bit different. But there's quite a few. I'd call them failed championship clubs that are in League One and don't like it. But it's quite funny, to be honest, seeing some of the replies and comments from some other clubs in League One. Hopefully those fans realise they are a League One team now for a reason.
I think we've just got to the point where we're so sad we just accept it. I don't think we can fight it anymore. It just gets depressing.
But hopefully your future's going to be a bit more positive.
Nothing ever works out with Sunderland. I said that last night.
I can imagine you're in the position now where you need to kind of see it before you believe it now. You've had quite a few false dawns.
Yeah, I said that in bed to my girlfriend last night. That the pillow talks changed ever so slightly and changed into, why is it always us? Why we just never? Why can we not beat Plymouth at home? And it's no offense to Plymouth, that's where we're at. No. But it is what it is. But I think I ask these questions on a regular basis, and it's worrying me the more that I ask it. And I probably asked it in the wrong order, asking you, about the club and our stature and stuff. But I'm always curious as to who opposition fans view as Sunderland's danger men, and it's getting less and less. So maybe I'll change the question slightly. Where are Shrewsbury weak, and who or how do you think that Sunderland could damage Shrewsbury on Saturday?
To be honest, my knowledge of Sunderland players has declined as more players have left. I think if you're going to break us down, you're going to need good wing players, good delivery, and you're probably going to need some pace. So the only way you're going to score against us is either through a long-range wonder goal, or it's going to have to be where you get behind us. If you plan to play a slow, plodding, possession-based game,
that's
then you've got, I'd say. if your analysts have watched the Doncaster game, watched the Lincoln game, watched the whole game, and then watched the Southampton game last night, then you're not going to get much from us unless we make an error. So I think you're going to have to try and force us to make errors. And the only way you're going to do that is by playing at pace and with accuracy. And given I've no idea who plays up front for you anymore, and certainly your players don't come up in the top goal scorers of the division.
Ollie Wake's doing all right this season, to be fair, for once. I think he's got 11. Bless him.
But yeah, you're going to have to play with some pace and some accuracy, and be quite. I think it might take some kind of individual skill to break us down. So that's what you're going to need.
You're looking at maybe McGeady there, but there'll be Sunderland fans listening to you saying that. And Sunderland play. I'm trying to think of the technical term for pissing about with it on the halfway line, and then eventually realizing we're getting beat. So yeah, that's a bit of a worry, I guess, because that's pretty much exactly how we do play. We kind of plod along in the middle and do a sweet FA with it, and then can't really get a decent ball in the box, as have been the last few games. But maybe I'm just feeling sad because of yesterday's game. So last but not least, as always, predictions for Saturday's game. I'm going to go first because it's kind of worked out when I've been going first recently. We've been winning games. But I can't see anything other than a 1-1. I'm just standard. Let's just guess 1-1, and I'm going to be there or thereabouts for Sunderland, I think.
Yeah, that was funny. I knew you obviously asked this question, and for me, a 1-1 draw as well. Maybe 2-2, but I think both teams, will probably struggle to score. And you for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think it'll probably be a draw. Maybe you take the lead, and then we kind of peg you back. But yeah, I don't expect this is going to be a great game for the neutrals. No. I think it's probably going to be two quite dogged teams for various reasons. I'm probably happy with a draw. Yeah,
I think it's getting like that. I know our home form's horrific, but hopefully that can be proven wrong. And next week's preview pod, I sound a little bit happier because I think I certainly sound a lot sadder than I did previously. Before I let you go, Ollie, obviously best wishes to Steve Cotterill, obviously former Sunderland assistant manager, and let's hope he's back in the dugout sooner rather than later and fit and happy and healthy. And hopefully listens to this. I don't know whether he will, but if he does, please get well.
I think he'd be too busy on.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's very busy on Scout looking at players. But thanks for the messages. It's been nice. I think hopefully he's got the messages from a lot of football clubs and a lot of fans sending him best wishes. So yeah, fingers crossed he'll be back soon. And yeah, hopefully you guys will be hopefully in a better place soon as well. Sounds like an exciting project could be happening with you guys.
Well, maybe we're all just used to things falling to pieces. But Ollie, thanks for coming on as always. Hopefully the game's not called off the minute I put this one out. Fingers crossed. But thanks again for popping on.